Hey guys! Welcome back to Triple M Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Felicia.
And we're going to be talking about Sylvia Plath today. Hi guys, welcome to our podcast, Mental Myths and Mysteries. It's alright, it's okay, but you should listen anyway. This episode is brought to you by Pizza. Use code MENTAL at checkout to get 15% off of your next pizza.
Is that even like a real code?
No, I don't have any.
Like, what kind of pizza?
I just like pizza. So, I mean,
You don't.
I don't
we're
know.
We're not popular enough for ads. What pizza's gonna sponsor us?
We don't have any ads yet.
What pizza's like, ooh, I'm really into mental illness?
Man, pizza is the ultimate depression meal.
Oh.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, so we're the demographic.
We're the demographic. You don't even have to get out of bed to order a pizza, okay?
Okay, but how are they gonna know? You have to get out of bed to pick it up, though.
You don't pick it up. You have it delivered.
I have to get out of bed to open the door. You can't just, like, slide it.
You can put, they have that little box at the bottom where you're like, any special instructions? I'm depressed.
Please just throw it. I'll leave my window open. Just throw it in there. Chuck it in the window. I'll leave you a fat tip.
Anyway, so if anybody wants to fill in that pizza ad with a real ad, we'd be happy to do that for you.
If anyone wants to fill it in with a fake ad, we'll be happy to do that too.
If you just want to shout out your own Instagram, I mean, we'll probably do that too.
Like, what we're saying is...
We're desperate for ads.
We're desperate for attention.
Seriously, though, I did make a post. You can find it on our Facebook page at Mental Myths and Mysteries. And I have a promo code up there as long as you follow... Well, it's not a code. I'm sorry. But it's a promotion. And as long as you follow the steps to share and like either our Instagram or our Facebook... and then go to one of our podcast hosts like Apple or Spotify and download it, then we can work out a deal to get your shout out on here for free. So, love to hear about that.
Yeah, nothing better than free advertisement.
Free advertising. I mean, we've got some downloads. People are listening to this. It's not nobody.
It's not nobody.
It's not nobody. We're popular. We're pretty cool. Eh. All right. So, how you doing, Fee?
I'm great.
You're great?
I'm great.
You look great.
Thank you. You look great.
Thank you. I'm so glad we look great together.
Right.
I love your We Love Orlando shirt from Hustler.
Thank you.
Representing Hustler on those melons.
if you can't see this, you guys, but I'm carrying two honeydew melons. It's just my thing.
Two honeydew
melons are my favorite fruit. I like to eat them in twos.
She's looking for a melon ball. If there's any Harvard graduated melon balls that make over $150,000 a year.
Yes.
Yeah.
150. 150 solid.
150 solid. Awesome. Well, we hope you guys are doing great. We're going to be talking about Sylvia Plath today. If you don't know, Sylvia Plath's a super popular poet. That's what it is.
She's a popular poet.
She's a popular poet. Awesome. So anyway, she's a super popular poet, and she totally killed herself in a super cool way. I mean,
I'm not even going to comment on that. There's no cool way to kill yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some cool ways if you want to be extra about it. Like, I killed myself.
It's an interesting way.
Did she leave notes? Like a scavenger hunt?
Oh my God. Okay.
Fine.
Let's reel this back in.
Okay.
I'm not being very psych nursey right now. There is no cool way to kill yourself.
No.
Please do not kill yourself. If you are having thoughts of suicide, please take it seriously and reach out to someone for help. But the story about Sylvia Plath is pretty cool. So the main story I'm going to be sharing with you today comes from the Poetry Foundation. You can go to their website at poetryfoundation.org/poets/Sylvia Plath to read the full story I'm going to talk to you about today.
Did you know? I'm sorry, this is very off topic, but we're talking about poetry.
Yeah.
Each state has their own poet laureate.
What is that?
It's the poet of the state. It's like each state has their own top poet.
So who's the top poet of North Carolina?
I don't remember, but I had to go see him for like extra credit one year. Yeah. He read us poems.
Yeah? Were they good?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? But you remember the Lariat.
Yes.
Shout out to Mandy for sending us the information on a daguerreotype.
What is a daguerreotype?
She really couldn't explain it, but there's an article I posted that I haven't read yet.
See, you guys, we don't want to do the research. We need to be spoon-fed this information.
Yes, please spoon-feed us everything, including your melons. Just kidding. So Sylvia Plath was born in 1932 in Boston. She was the daughter of a German immigrant who was a college professor. His name was Otto Plath, and he married one of his students, Aurelia Schober.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
Did she
get all A's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top of the
I think
class?
she got on top and all
Just
A's.
rode all the way
and
through.
Rode all the way through her class. Okay. So her early years were spent near the seashore. I want you to say Sally sells seashells by the seashore really fast.
Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
Excellent. The seashore.
The
I
seashore.
Like it. The seashore. Hashtag feminism. It's a seashore now.
All beaches are women.
All beaches are women. Oh, wow. That was good. That was really good. All right. But her life changed abruptly when her father died in 1940.
From being a lot older than her mother.
Some of the most vivid poems, including her well-known Daddy, no comment, concern her troubled relationship with her authoritarian father and her feelings of betrayal when he died. Financial circumstances forced the Plath family to move to Wellesley, Massachusetts, where Aurelia Plath taught advanced secretarial studies at Boston University.
Wait, what is secretarial, like how to be a really awesome secretary?
I mean, it's, 1940s? So yeah, that's the only job women were allowed to have, duh. She was a gifted student who had won numerous awards and had published stories and poetry in national magazines while still in her teens. It was during her undergraduate years that she began to suffer the symptoms of severe depression that would ultimately lead to her death. In one of her journal entries, dated June 20th, 1958, she wrote, "It is as if my life were magically run by two electric currents, joyous positive and despairing negative. Whichever is running at the moment dominates my life, floods it." This is an eloquent description of bipolar disorder, also known as manic depression, a very serious illness for which no genuinely effective medications were available during Plath's lifetime. So fun facts about bipolar disorder. Not necessarily fun facts.
I wouldn't call them fun facts.
Let's call them myth-busting facts about bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is not just rapid mood swings like people think. The fact that Plath explains here that it's like two electric currents really helps you to understand how deeply she was feeling those emotions. Mm-hmm. And the joyous positive is usually accompanied by something called mania, which is an excess of energy. Another myth about that is that when you get all of this excess energy, you're just going to be able to accomplish things, be extremely creative. But what actually ends up happening is it's like, the closest I can explain it to a neurotypical person is if you were to drink like a whole pot of coffee and you're having all the side effects from it at the same time. So you're not really organized. You can't really just go out and get things done. It's like an overwhelming feeling and you just can't calm down. You just can't sit down. It leads to your brain trying to find ways to cope, which can result in a lot of impulsive decisions like gambling or sexual impulsive decisions, that sort of thing. So while it may feel fun at the time, for some patients, for others, it can be really upsetting and they can't seem to calm down. They'll be up for days, they can't sleep. And then at the end of that, there's a crash. They end up in a state of depression, and that depression can be really, really severe. So,
is there any like chill moments or just a constant cycle of just coming down?
yeah, I mean, you can have moments where you feel like you're stable. And it's not, there's 4 different types of bipolar disorder, and some of them are more rapid cycling where you're going to be up and down and up and down. But the most common one, you're going to be basically experiencing highs and lows. And when you're not feeling those highs, then it's going to be hard for you to determine whether you're feeling balanced or depressed because you've spent so much time feeling manic. So at the age of 20, in August of 1953, Plath attempted her first suicide. Well, actually, I found out that this was her second suicide. So her first suicide attempt, yes, she tried to slit her throat when she was 10 years old.
Jesus. Why that? Why so aggressive? Kids are just...
Kids, yeah,
Wild.
I don't know. Kids tend to go towards knives. Maybe it's the easiest thing to access in the kitchen. So.
I just think they have like no fear. Like, I could do this. I could just slit my throat.
Yeah, that's that prefrontal cortex part that we'll talk about later. So this was her second attempt at the age of 20, and she did it by swallowing 50 sleeping pills. She took the sleeping pills, and then she went into her parents' basement, which I'm not sure if it was like a traditional standard basement underneath the house, or
like a cellar,
like at the bottom, or if it was like a cellar or a crawl space. But from what I understand, she was hiding well enough that her family had a really hard time finding her, and she was very lucky to have been found, pulled out, and lived through the experience. After they took her to the hospital, she was hospitalized and began receiving electroshock therapy treatments, and that managed to help her for a little while. So electroshock therapy is actually used a lot nowadays, and it's improved significantly, whereas it used to be pretty dangerous. So definitely something you can look into. My listeners out there that might be dealing with symptoms of bipolar disorder or other mental health conditions, and you feel like your medications aren't working, or you've tried everything, you can definitely talk to your doctor about electroshock therapy. Her experiences of her breakdown were later recorded in her book that was published called The Bell Jar. Very interesting book. You can find that on Amazon. And after she made her recovery, she returned, got her degree, and then married a fellow poet named Ted Hughes.
Okay.
They were married in 1956 and ended up having 2 young children.
Now, was Ted a stable person?
I didn't do a lot of research into Ted. Maybe we'll talk about him later.
Okay.
I do know that he was unstable enough that in 1962, he cheated on her with another woman. It resulted in their separation, and she left with her 2 young children to go live by herself.
Never mind. Let's not research Ted.
Yeah,
he sounds terrible.
Ex-husbands, right? So, now I'll tell you the gruesome story of her murder. Are you ready?
Her murder?
I'm sorry, her suicide.
I mean, okay.
I guess it could be a murder if you look at it like her own brain murdered her. So, right before she committed suicide, and actually succeeded this time, she was living alone with her 2 kids, and she spent a gloomy winter in isolation, and she was in the grip of a long depressive cycle. She'd been writing a lot of poetry and had begun seeing a doctor to try to reach out and figure out what was going on with herself and to get some help. She did write a lot of poetry during this time because, as you know, writing things down or art therapy are good ways to deal with your symptoms. And, she was trying to process this whole affair. She's got 2 kids. She's living alone. It's, the 1960s. Things were crazy back then. And so I can only imagine, how much of a struggle this was for her. She, one night she was at home and there was a nurse that was supposed to come see her that she had kind of hooked up with and check on her and the children. And when they came into her house, they found her dead. Shortly before this happened, her doctor had prescribed her an antidepressant called Parnate, which is an MAOI inhibitor. MAOIs are still drugs that are on the market today, but a lot of research has proven that they're extremely dangerous. And so you really have to watch what you're doing when you're taking MAOIs. They have a lot of reactions with things in your diet. And so some people believe that her taking this medication may have led to the decisions that she made. So the nurse was scheduled to arrive on the morning of February 11th, and no one answered the door. So with the help of a workman, they got into the apartment where they found Sylvia dead with her head in the oven.
Now...
Yeah, in the oven.
Why the oven?
I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I don't know if the heat was on. I don't think she could have burned her head alive.
Is it a gas oven?
Let's see. It was estimated that she had put her head in the oven and turned on the gas at 4:30 a.m. So from what I read in another story, she had taped up the kitchen. So put tape, where the seal of the doors are. Mm-hmm. And her 2 children were asleep in their beds. She prepared them milk and bread and then went into the kitchen, turned on the gas, and stuck her head in the oven. And so the thought goes that she taped up the doors and things so that the gas wouldn't get to her children. And, made them food and left it by their bed so that they would be okay. So clearly this was like a well thought out process plan, not something done in a hurry. And most people that experience bipolar disorder or manic depression, as it used to be called, they will attempt suicide when they're manic and not depressed. Sounds like Sylvia did this while she was depressed. But usually people are too depressed and don't have enough energy to attempt suicide when they're going through that portion of the cycle. So that's why a lot of times you may think your best friend or whoever's okay, like in the case of Robin Williams, right? He's like the most happy guy ever, and then all of a sudden he's committing suicide and no one knows what happened. Well, when you see your friend that is dealing with highs and lows, and then you see some extreme highs, that's probably the time you need to really start watching them the most. So why did she kill herself? Everything knowable has been ransacked for evidence over many years, and some people blame Hugh's infidelity. Others infer from the timing of her actions that Plath expected to be rescued and miscalculated the danger. When she killed herself, she pulled a piece of paper out from underneath the cups in her cabinets and wrote on it, and there were only 4 words, and it wasn't really a suicide note. It just said, "Please call Dr. Horder," with his phone number. Dr. Horder believed that her death was intentional but irrational, and that she was in the grips of a compulsion attributable to her brain chemistry, the biological condition that the psychoactive medication he was giving her was addressing. Unfortunately, the medication had gone so far as to give her enough strength to act out on her hopelessness. Hughes believed that it induced the suicidal thoughts it was supposed to alleviate, her ex-husband, and that the medication prompted the suicide. And you'll actually hear about that about a lot of antidepressive medications, that they increase thoughts of suicide. And that is the primary reason why. Because once you're too depressed to actually carry anything out. Mm-hmm. You start taking the medication, you feel a bit better, and then boom, you have the energy to off yourself. So some who have written of the suicide believe that Sylvia was crying for help rather than intending to actually die. Others have viewed it as a deliberate act.
I don't want to say whether it's deliberate or not.
I mean, it seems deliberate, right? But I mean, even when we're trying to carry out, because I've dealt with suicidal thoughts. Right. You have, a lot of people have. And I think that we just think it's not going to actually happen. Mm-hmm. There's that small piece of you that's like, I really want to die right now, but
it doesn't seem, because you never died before, so you don't
know. And she's already made multiple attempts.
Yeah.
So she's like, I've already lived through taking 50 sleeping pills. I've already lived through trying to slit my throat.
Right.
Like, this is just a little bit of gas. Plus, it's not like the oven was closed, right? So it's not like where people sit in a car and attempt suicide with gas that way, and you're, like, enclosed in a small space. She's got, like, the gas is going over the whole kitchen.
Right.
Like, and please call Dr. Horder. She started at 4:30 in the morning. The nurse was set to show up in a few hours. So in some ways, to me, that seems like a cry for help. She's thinking, I'll probably just pass out, right? I'm not going to actually die. The nurse is going to come. She's going to find me passed out. She's going to call Dr. Horder to get me some help. And I don't know if they had 911 back then. That's something you guys could research and spoon feed us. Was there 911 in 1963?
Was there?
Was there?
Or did you have to go outside and yell?
And call Dr. Horder. Isn't that a horrible name? Dr. Horder. Either way, it's evident that she wanted the note to be found. One of her most famous poems, Lady Lazarus, has this excerpt in it. Dying is an art, like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I've a call. And it's interesting that she named it Lazarus, because Lazarus died.
Rose from the dead.
And then rose from the dead. So did she think that she was just going to kind of half die? Because she almost seems to be talking about death here like it's an experience that she's gone through multiple times, but it hasn't actually died from. I do it so it feels real.
Or just that need to feel something.
Right, which is why a lot of people self-harm. So she constantly wrote about death and suicide, and she is synonymous with the term suicidal artist. She was a child prodigy. She wrote her first poems at age 8, and at age 19, she crashed hard with a nervous breakdown and then her suicide attempt. So she chronicled in her autobiographical novel, The Bell Jar, that she left a note that she was going for a walk and instead went to a hiding place in her basement. There she swallowed 50 sleeping pills. It was practically a miracle that she was found still alive. So it's clear that she has a pattern, too, of leaving a note. Mm-hmm. And people that are really intent on killing themselves are typically not going to leave you a note. I think, a lot of research has proven that people who've lived through their suicidality experiences that were extreme, let's say they had to end up in the hospital and have treatment or end up in a coma or whatever, when they come out on the other end of it, they always report, I shouldn't say always, but most times they report that they didn't think that they would actually die.
Right.
And a lot of it is just kind of a cry for help. She had written this poem only a few days before she died. This poem's titled Edge. The woman is perfected, her dead. Body wear is the smile of accomplishment. The inclusion of a Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of her toga. Her bare feet seem to be saying, "We have come so far, it is over." Each dead child coiled, a white serpent, one at each little pitcher of milk, now empty. She has folded them back into her body as petals of a rose close when the garden stiffens and odors bleed from the sweet, deep throats of the night flowers.
I'm so sorry I heard the poem, but when you read her dead, all I can think about is your baby being coming back. Like, hi, her dead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is horrible, though. I mean, what a dark poem. And it seems to see that, there's a little piece of her that hoped her children would die with her. Each dead child coiled a white serpent. And she's folded them back into her body as petals.
As in that, bringing them out of this situation that she doesn't agree with.
Or maybe maybe it's part of her too, because I've experienced this when I'm depressed. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the part of her that's saying, I should have never had these children. Mm-hmm. I want to fold them back into me, because now they're having to live this life of me being in this constant state of mania and depression. And even though she's struggling with that, she really loves her kids.
Right.
But she knows what kind of problems, her own mental problems, are causing for them. So a couple fun facts about Sylvia. Again, not fun. I'm
None
sorry,
of these
guys.
Facts are fun.
Can't quit saying that. They're definitely not fun.
We call them interesting facts.
Interesting facts. So one factoid is that her son was named Nicholas, and he killed himself at his home in Alaska nearly a half a century after his mother and stepmother both took their lives. So maybe this Hughes guy is doing something, because stepmother, so he got married.
Or maybe as a type.
Suicidal as a type? Oh my God. I mean, maybe he's a narcissist. You know how I feel about that.
All right, we're not talking about
that topic's going to come up a lot. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, maybe he's pushing these women to death.
Like, he's just, like, they're already with their own issues. And he's just over here like,
I'm going to use you and abuse you.
Right.
Which was pretty much the common behavior of men in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s.
He probably was just living his life. He come home. He's like, you ain't cook or clean.
Yeah.
And she's over here.
You didn't read the manual that I gave you?
How to be a good housewife.
About how to be a good housewife.
I know that's his mother, his stepmother, him.
Yeah. So that brings up the important topic about how a lot of personality disorders or mental health disorders are genetic. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people like to tout the myth that they're not real, or, it's just psychology trying to diagnose us with things.
We could all get past this if we were just strong enough.
If we were just
mentally.
a bit stronger. Yeah, exactly. And when you look at the MRI scans, there's clear changes in the brains of people who suffer with things. I mean, I have ADHD. Mm-hmm. There's 5 different parts of the brain that are smaller than they're supposed to be when you're dealing with that. And in bipolar disorder, there's a less amount of gray matter than there should be. And all you have to do is look at the scans to see it. So not really cool that people have that myth, but very sad that it is genetic.
Yes.
And so it's important to make sure you get that health and that you talk to your kids about any symptoms they may be having, so that they know that it's a possibility they're struggling with some of the same things.
Or preventative things, like don't aggravate it by adding drugs and
alcohol. Yeah, exactly. You definitely should stay away from those things when you're dealing with mood swings. So here's my favorite factoid about Sylvia Plath. Well,
it's a happy one, right?
My favorite one is that her birthday is October 27th, which is one day after my birthday. So go Scorpios. Whoop, whoop. It's also Scorpio season right now. Shout out to my Scorpios. Happy birthday. But this is my second favorite factoid. So she has a grave, obviously, because she died. And there's a lot of theories going around about what's causing this, but essentially her grave reads Sylvia Plath Hughes. And over the course of the last 50 years, the name Hughes has been scratched out or messed up over her grave. And some people believe, because no one has ever been caught in the act of defiling the grave, and that because it's been over 50 years, it clearly can't be the same person, that Sylvia herself is coming back from the dead to mark Hughes off of her grave.
I would too. Like, why would you knew we were divorced.
Exactly.
And you knew he was trash. Mm-hmm. You gonna put his name on my grave?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So,
that's pretty cool though. That's like very like, no, stop. Do they keep fixing it?
I mean, I don't know. I didn't really get the whole information in the story, but it sounds like her grave has been defiled multiple times over the last 50 years. So I would assume that they must be fixing it for people to be defiling it.
Why do they keep obviously that's not what she wanted.
But then a lot of people say, oh, it's just the feminists. They're coming into her headstone. They bash his name off of the grave to kind of support her. It's like an obsession with feminism, that sort of thing. So who knows? But wouldn't it be great? Because that is definitely something I myself, as a Scorpio, would do from the grave.
Right.
Is come back and take this shit off of my grave. My last name is not fucking Hughes. And I don't care whether he says so or not.
No.
My name is fucking Sylvia Plath. And that's great that she is famous and does not have to deal with that being a part of her name anymore. So the reality is that we still don't know all of what Plath left behind. And she never had a will. And she only died at 30 years of age. So really sad, but we're thankful that Plath lived and she was able to give us some amazing poetry and that people can still read it today and
relate and know that your struggle isn't just your struggle.
right, and that you're going to be okay. And luckily, we do have medications that can help treat bipolar disorder nowadays. Some that are very
Successful?
Very successful, yeah. And so with those treatments, you can get better and you can live a full life. And nothing is perfect. Nothing is ever going to be a cure, but we learn to cope and we move on. And so I hope that if you're struggling with any of these symptoms, you reach out to your doctor. And if you would like to learn more about Sylvia Plath, we'll be posting a couple of things on our Facebook and Instagram. Our Facebook is Mental Myths and Mysteries. Our Instagram is Mental Mysteries. And you can find us at mcast@gmail.com if you'd like to hit us up. We also host our podcast on Apple and Instagram. We'll be posting every week, twice a week, hopefully on Mondays and Fridays. And we hope to see you soon. And if you're struggling, please reach out so that you don't end up on our show.